Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the TAW pay-per-view review of WWE Tables, Ladders, and Chairs 2020, right here on the Totally Awesome Podcast. The podcast so bad, you might just tap out. My name's JoshAgeddon, and I'm joined with...
I am, as always, your Colonial Champion, Sean McCarty.
And we are also joined by Skyler in the form of Notes once again, so he switches between human form and note form, just like a note version of Majin Buu.
Or Mick Foley.
Yeah.
This is like a dude love appearance.
And
savor it one can.
So yeah, he did send us his notes, his analysis, I guess you could say. It was like over a couple thousand words. So...
Well, leave it to Sky to make sure that a wrestling pay-per-view deserves a dissertation.
Yeah. The intro he calls the preamble. And I'm just like, so is this like the freaking Constitution or something?
He wishes his opinion was the rule of law, but that's a different story.
I thought like constitutional colonial stuff was your gimmick.
I know. I'm not. Well, he's co-hosting for me now, so I've taken him under my wing, so he's getting a little piece of the pie.
All right. Okay, so Tables, Ladders, and Chairs 2020. I personally enjoyed the show. I didn't think it was amazing or great. The matches, I thought, except for the main event, but we'll get to that. I thought it was a good show in ring-wise. The booking in this company in general is just atrocious, but you should be expected at this point. So, Sean, what were your impressions of the pay-per-view overall?
All in all, this show was honestly not as bad as I thought it was going to be. I mean, there was still a lot of stuff I took issue with, but a lot of that, like most of the time, most of my issues come from presentation more than it actually does the talent themselves. And we're going to talk in a lot of ways about that over the course of all of these matches. But they've had much worse than this year.
Significantly.
I thought it was pretty passable.
Let me put it this way. This is not high praise, but it was better than Survivor Series.
Oh yeah. By a little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit.
So I will go ahead and read Skyler's preamble, and a shout-out to Skyler, who was unavailable for tonight. Notes for the TLC podcast review. Preamble. Still makes me laugh every time I read that.
If it starts when in the course of human events, I'm going to be really upset. It's downright plagiarizing.
Hello, JoshAgeddon and Colonial Champion Sean McCarty. It is once again Skyler's notes for the latest WWE pay-per-view event, magically printing out of the fax machine. I apologize for being unable to attend today's review. Right now, even as we speak, I am helping Alberto Del Rio track down and continuously run over Santa Claus again and again and again. I approve.
Oh, God.
I approve.
Wait. First of all, I'm pretty sure Alberto Del Rio is in prison at this moment.
Running over... Okay, fine. Shanking Santa Claus again and again and again.
I feel like Sky, that's kind of one of those things that, like, he knows that he'd get canceled if he put that on my show. But when it comes to your show, he's like, nah, let's just let it loose.
We have no class or standards here at the TAW podcast. That's what makes it so good.
That's why we preface it by it might make me tap out. So, buckle up.
But speaking of running things into the ground, let's talk about WWE's latest pay-per-view, TLC, which, by the way, should not be a pay-per-view, just like Hell in a Cell should not be a pay-per-view or Money in the Bank. Hashtag bring back creative pay-per-view names. I don't think that's going to be a top trend. First off, the Thunderdome is now officially on my nerves, and I apologize to Joshua for saying I liked it when they rolled the gimmick out in the first place. See, sometimes the crazy thing is, sometimes I'm right.
Well, the crazy thing is, a lot of the times you're right, but you just reach the conclusion faster than everyone else does.
I'm not a monster. I'm just ahead of the curb, okay?
Power on you, and you drink Monster.
Yes.
And so that's not related, but you made the Joker reference, but you spot things before everyone else sours on the proposition.
Yeah. Alright, so, it is awful and terribly distracting and made it a pain on the eyes whenever they pan to the fans, quote-unquote, in the arena. Just have graphics up during matches and this would have been so much better. I don't know if that would have been better. Since we have moved to Tropicana Field in Orlando, we get more pyro because of Saudi Arabian blood money. Baseball stadium for Tampa Bay Rays of MLB, since the only sports Joshua plays or has interest in is wrestling and dick pulling. I like soccer, okay? You're not wrong about the other two, but I also like soccer. Production is an issue with crowd noise and camera angles all night because, of course, it is, especially during Kevin Owens and Roman Reigns. Damn it, Kevin Dunn, and F you, Vince. Gonna try to keep it a teeny bit PG tonight.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes.
It's not gonna last. Did you watch the pre-show match, didn't you, Sean?
I did see the pre-show match.
What were your thoughts on it?
Okay, well, did you see the pre-show match?
No, I didn't. I never watched the pre-show.
Yeah, I know.
Because I got better things to do, like wait for the show to start.
Now, see, I write 5-6 pages of notes, but I do more mine like bullet points, whereas Skyler's actually doing a term paper that he's going to pass in to Gerald Briscoe. And
hey, as an English major, I can appreciate a well-written paper. I have yet to get. I have now. When I say that, I have yet to have received a well-written paper from Skyler. But this is a written paper.
Slam.
We'll get to that. Anyway.
This is what you get, Grammar Notes Sky, for wanting to be in this form of the show. You're going to get slam dunked by the English major.
Yes. But,
So, for the pre-match show on TLC 2020, Revenge of the Dunderdome, we have, which is what I'm going to call it from now on, is the Kevin Dunderdome.
That's so accurate.
Because it's really his show now.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about the wrestlers. It's not about the storylines. It's really about all of Kevin Dunn's additional BS.
Mm-hmm.
So we start out this match with an 8-man tag match. It is, I don't even remember the participants. I didn't even write them down. It was Otis, Daniel Bryan, Chad Gable, and a fourth man and Big E against the team of Sami Zayn, Cesaro, Shinsuke Nakamura, and Baron Corbin, the Lone Wolf, with his Knights of the Lone Wolf, which makes no sense. If he's a lone wolf, why would he have people? Do these people think about these things before they pitch them onto television?
We will come back to this topic time and time again. Not Baron Corbin, because no one wants to talk about him more than once. Not even once. But as far as, like, logic holes, there are so many throughout the show.
It's like this particularly was like, come on, guys. His moniker is the Lone Wolf. Do you even know what alone means alone?
It's like in Rise of Skywalker where Finn's like, yeah, alone with friends.
And then they did this thing. I think they were trying to justify it, like with an interview with Corbin, and Corbin says, "Oh, we're not royalty, we're not family, we're just guys who are royalty." I don't even know. It made zero sense, absolutely zero sense. So this match started out actually kind of slow. It did not devolve into an 8-man tag pandemonium the way it normally does. They got everybody in. You could tell who the definitive heels were, who the definitive baby faces were, who was feuding with who was made apparent. I hate the fact that they call Nakamura Shin. He is not a leg bone.
Oh, as we'll get to, apparently Shinsuke is difficult for Skyler to spell, but we'll get to that in a minute.
But still, use Nox. Use Nakamura. And Nakamura, we want to talk about, like, travesties of justice with WWE and their people. Look no further than Shinsuke Nakamura. I loved Big E. One of the funniest things, Big E, as Nakamura was making his way down to the ring, Big E, being a total goof, is like air violining. Like he's like totally jamming into it, like at the Dave Matthews concert. And it was it was funny. But that's Big E, and I wish Big E were a little more serious, but that's something else.
You have to insult him for him to be serious, as we saw later on in the show.
I know. They never do, and I think it's funny that they have no problem booking 8-man tag matches in the middle of a pandemic. I can't wait for them to fill up the Royal Rumble with 14 or 15 guys in close proximity, and then nobody bat an eye.
Yeah. Can you imagine how awkward a socially distanced Royal Rumble would be? I would actually want to see that.
Well, this would have been the year for Brock Lesnar to just dominate everybody.
Yeah, they should have done this year, and not the beginning of this year.
Made way more sense.
Yeah.
But hindsight is in fact 2020.
Nice.
So,
thank you.
So anyway, then what is up with Daniel Bryan's hair? He looks like one of the people from Whoville took a dump on his head. It's just bad. Who is doing the haircut of Daniel Bryan? It might be his daughter. He may have his daughter do it, where she's just like, and just cutting with the scissors.
Just think about this. Can you imagine having a little girl and naming her Bird?
Yeah, that's probably why she's taking the scissors to him.
Why would you name your daughter Bird?
Birdie.
That's even worse. Birdie.
I don't know what's worse, having the name Birdie or being the daughter of a Bella.
Hi, my name's Birdie Bryan. She's gonna.
I'm Birdie Bella Danielson.
So bad. It's so bad.
That is, ladies and gentlemen, the new WWE Ultra Mega Galactic Universal Champion.
Birdie Bella Danielson.
Birdie Bella Danielson.
That may actually be one of the worst names on this planet.
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. We have predicted the future.
Anyway,
so the rest of this match, it's not bad. It does kind of combust into a traditional 8-man tag, but they got the finish. Worked really well as far as Sami Zayn trying to sneak his way into winning the match. Big E catching him, hitting the big ending definitively, looking great, getting the pin over the Intercontinental Champion. Really solid stuff here. For an 8-man tag that usually are pretty forgettable, this was actually pretty solid.
And it
I give
even
credit to everybody and I even have to give credit to Otis here.
Oh,
because there was one spot where Nakamura, I think, hit Otis, or Nakamura was like hands and knees on the ground, and Otis was falling. And Otis, if he had fallen straight, he would have easily just crushed Nakamura's neck and his skull. But he had just enough wherewithal to torque his body ever so slightly to get out of the way. So props to him for, moving all that weight around and not killing Shinsuke Nakamura. There's plenty of murder on this show as it is.
Yes. Yes, there was.
And honestly, this is one of those moments where Kevin Dunn's crowd noise actually kind of helped it.
When we get to the Kevin Owens Roman Reigns match, my God! But we'll get to that. But
yeah, this is a rare instance where the crowd noise probably would have been better than what the fans would have done with this.
Yeah. Sometimes there are occasions where the crowd noise does help, because it always sucks when you're watching a pay-per-view and the fans are just dead quiet. So at least in this era of pay-per-views with the stupid Dunderdome, there's always noise.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's over the top and ridiculous, but at least there's noise.
It's for a pre-show match. Usually pre-show matches are like okay or just not worth the time. This one was actually all right. For an 8-man tag match on a pre-show, it definitely outdid expectations. And
it set up because on the Christmas edition of SmackDown, they're going to have Big E versus Sami Zayn for the Intercontinental title. So at least it's setting up something. And if didn't spoilers come out for SmackDown?
Yes, and I think Big E might have won.
Shocking. Them going with a babyface.
Well, I would like Big E. I mean, at least we're probably not going to talk about it, but there was one segment on this show where Sami Zayn started accusing Big E, and then he kind of taunted Big E enough to where Big E finally got serious.
Yes.
And he got that look at his face, and I liked that. I'm like, yes, more of that.
Yeah, his exact words. His exact words were, you've done nothing but float around ever since you broke up with the New Day. And Big E got mad because people usually get mad when you point out the truth. So...
Yeah, you do nothing but tread water, I think is what he called it.
Yeah.
So, and you know what? It's, I'd like to see more serious Big E, and maybe we'll get more of that as the weeks roll on. But this was, honestly, this was serviceable. One of those ones where I would say, you know what? If you wanted to go back and watch it, I would recommend giving it a look. But, you know, it's WWE, so you don't have to, you know, break your back to go and watch it.
These are Skyler's notes for this match. 8-man tag, Daniel Bryan, Otis, Chad Gable, and Big E versus Sami Zayn, Baron Corbin, Shinsuke Nakamura, and Cesaro. Shinsuke Nakamura. That's accidental genius right there. That's funny.
Well, if we ever needed a brother figure that he could pop in, you know, we could have Shinsuke and Shinsake.
They need to do like a gimmick where he just drinks way too much Japanese like alcohol, so he's Shinsake all the time. Shinsake Nakamura.
Oh God! You know what? He should take Adam Page's gimmick and just become an unreliable alcoholic, and just go around and just drunkenly just like try to be people's tag team partner. He should pull the Scott Hall '98 gimmick.
Oh, then he really would be a rock star.
Where Shinsuke Nakamura just comes in and he's just got like little teeny cups of sake that he's just pounded.
And they rain from the sky in the empty arena.
Oh my God. Him teaming up with the Street Profits and the Street Profits dropping just tiny, like, millions of little porcelain sake cups.
I'd be down with that. Do you see what you've done?
See that once and then never again.
Do you see what you've done, Skyler? Alright, anyway. So let me set...
That's his fault.
Yes. So let me get this straight. Again, I'm an English major. I notice stuff like this. So let me get this straight. You set up Sami Zayn versus Big E for the IC Championship and Daniel Bryan versus Jey Uso on SmackDown the past few weeks, and not only do you not decide to give us these matches, but then you lump these guys together for a meaningless 8-man tag on the pre-show with Corbin and Otis of all people. F you Vince too. The babyfaces won in 8 minutes and 35 seconds with Big E pinning Sami, but who really cares? Apparently Big E versus Sami Zayn for the IC title will happen on SmackDown on Christmas. Match should have been on the pay-per-view. I kind of agree with that.
Yeah, it would have been nicer. I mean, honestly, any time you can fit a singles match into a show, I'm all for singles matches over gimmick matches, which is kind of an overlying theme. And a point that was driven home this show is that just gimmicks just do not do it for me anymore.
Yeah.
Not the way they used to.
So the show actually opened with, and this was the first thing that really got on my... Immediately as the show came on the air, we started with Drew McIntyre defending the WWE title against AJ Styles in a tables, ladders, and chairs match. Okay, let me get the positives out of the way first. I thought this was a very good match and a very good opener. There was a lot of crazy stuff. There was a lot of crazy bumps. I love the Gorilla Press Slam on AJ through a table to the outside. My favorite thing in the match was when AJ had him in the calf slicer, the calf crusher, in the ladder, and Drew responded by doing the basketball head slam into the ladder. I thought that was awesome, and I loved how they made Drew McIntyre an unstoppable babyface. That said, I have several issues with this match. One, why are we opening the show with the WWE Championship?
I mean, because this company hates its own world title.
This company hates this is the wrong world championship to hate.
Yeah, I don't get it. But they have hated this belt since they launched the Universal title. They have hated this belt. This belt has main evented, 5 times in 6 years?
They want so badly for the Universal belt to be their main belt. Which sucks for the rest of us because, as I've discussed numerous times, the Universal Championship is the biggest pile of human excrement on this planet. And I actually have an hour-long tirade on my channel, one of the episodes of the TAP, where I go into the title's history and lineage and just excoriate it. So go listen to that.
And it's only been made worse since then. That was like a year ago you posted that.
or like early, like 6 months ago or something like that.
It was, and it's gotten no better.
Well, it's gotten a teeny bit better because Roman Reigns has had a very good Universal title reign.
Yes.
But still. And also, Drew McIntyre has become CM Punk from 2012. He's the main champion, but he's like the secondary champion. Like what Roman Reigns said before Survivor Series, he's number 2. It's so obnoxious.
He's the world mid-card champion.
Yes. And
that's really what it is.
And I made the comparison to CM Punk because when CM Punk was WWE champion for 434 days, he rarely main evented pay-per-views. It was always what John Cena was doing was the main event, or what Triple H and Brock Lesnar was doing was the main event. CM Punk barely ever main evented pay-per-views as champion, so it was like, why even have him as the champion? Except
AJ too. AJ too.
Same thing with AJ Styles. Except at least AJ and CM Punk actually main evented pay-per-views and won matches. Every time Drew McIntyre main events a pay-per-view as WWE champion, he loses.
Except for the one time he won it.
Except for when he won it, but if he goes into a pay-per-view as champion and main events, he loses.
And explain to me once again why it is that Randy Orton won that Hell in a Cell match.
I have no idea.
I have no idea. Because so he could set the Fiend on fire.
That's not... I don't even... Could you hear my brain stop working for a few seconds?
I have no words. This company.
This is what they did. Company. They had Drew McIntyre, who was champion for a long time, for most of the year, main event a pay-per-view against Randy Orton to close out their feud. They had him lose, just so he could win the title back on Raw a couple weeks later, so he could go to Survivor Series in the main event to lose, so he could go to the next pay-per-view as champion to open the show.
In other words, business as usual for the WWE title.
Normally I wouldn't care, but I love Drew McIntyre, so that makes me hate this company.
Remember when they took it off of Jinder Mahal just because they didn't want to have Jinder versus Lesnar? And they did that on SmackDown too. Just sort of like, all right, we'll have AJ Styles. I mean, honestly, that was a better situation that got us a better match. But
much better match.
At the same time, WWE title.
I think them putting the strap on Jinder Mahal was their way of trying to make it not as important as the Universal title. That may have been their plan. Let's devalue the WWE title by putting it on Jinder, so an actual wrestler with the Universal title will seem more important.
If only Jinder had more build up to that point, because he really did improve a lot during that reign. And if he had more prominent singles positioning, I think he might have actually been better suited for that role, and we'd look at it a little more fondly. But in any event, here's something that bothered me about this match. First of all, I hated this match.
I like this match. Sean did not like this match at all.
I did not like this match at all. And now, don't get me wrong. It's not Drew's fault. It's not AJ's fault. First of all, it being first, this would have been a great main event with a crowd.
If this was the main event of the show and had an audience, this would have been awesome.
This would have been a match of the night, bar none, hands down. Everything involved, even Miz getting involved later, would have been huge. People would have loved that. It would have added a mystique to it. It would have been great. But this match went forever.
It was a long one.
It started with AJ Styles making his entrance, and then they did the video package.
They've been doing that more and more often as of late, and I wish they would stop.
It's just bad formatting. It's bad presentation. There's no reason for that to happen. And then they do title intros for a gimmick match that's meant to heighten the stakes. So instead of fighting right away, they're all going to just sit and pose in front of nobody for the Dunderdome when they're supposed to be about to be beating each other up with weapons. For what's supposed to be the most prestigious title in the business.
Opening first after the champion keeps losing every time he's in the main event of a show.
Yeah.
I hate this company.
And then there was the commentary, which we'll talk about all night.
I'm not going to lie, for the most part, I tuned out the commentary because I'm just so numb to it at this point, I just didn't even listen. I just focused on what my eyes could see. Although there were a few points where I did notice some dumb lines from mostly from Michael Cole, of course, and from Todd Phillips.
And well, this one that was here, this one was a point that Samoa Joe made. So as Drew McIntyre's taking off the gauntlets here in this TLC match where there are no rules, Joe's like, why take off the gauntlets? They protect your arms and they're metal. And I was like, you kind of got a point there.
Yeah.
It's like, remember when Roman Reigns had his vest that he wore for years?
Yes.
So, and then this match just started going on and on and on and on and on and on. And it just kept going. And why is it, for these matches, why is it every single Drew McIntyre match this entire year has had everyone work on Drew's left leg, and somehow Drew McIntyre is still goddamn standing at the end of this year?
Yeah, I've noticed that. Why do they work on the left leg when he Claymore kicks with the right?
Well, because it's based on the left angle style that American wrestling is involved with, at least, because they never really use they never do that. There is some sort of technical reason why it's always using the left arm or the left leg, but the problem is, change it up, people. Who's agenting Drew's match where they're telling all of his opponents aim for the leg, but then they're going to make sure that they never sell it after the pay-per-view's over?
I will say that I thought that during this match, he sold it well, although he did do a military press with AJ without selling it, and I was like, oh, and then after he threw him, he started selling it, and I was just like, okay, that kind of takes me out of it a little bit. But the throw was cool, so I forgave it.
The chop over the top rope was nice and loud.
And I did think there was a part where the spot was Drew McIntyre suplexes a ladder at AJ, and AJ rolls out of the way. AJ did not roll out of the way good enough, and he got smacked with the ladder. So I bet that sucked.
But that was cool. That was innovative. I will give him that. There was some innovating stuff in this, and then AJ took forever to get the chair in between the ropes. But I missed the spot, and there was something that I thought of. So AJ was outside, and Drew for a moment, he took some chairs and started throwing them out. And he did it so he could position a table for them to go into whatever the spot was next. But it made me think, wouldn't it have been interesting if Drew McIntyre in the ultimate babyface move was like, I don't need to use the weapons. I'll just climb up and I'll climb up and get my prize, but I'm here to be the most athletically talented, and I don't need weapons to beat anybody here. And then you could tell the story that Drew McIntyre, even though he really wants to use the weapons and should use the weapons, won't use the weapons and still overcomes the odds. But, that's just me playing fantasy.
Yeah, I can kind of see that. I mean, but Sean, you have to do spots.
It'd be different. Yeah.
One thing that really annoyed me about this match is you have Omos standing there the entire match doing nothing, and then at a point he finally steps in when he could have been helping AJ the entire... And with both TLC matches, there was way too much interference.
Yeah.
It got really repetitive. But he just... at least in the later TLC match, Jay immediately got involved, so that made sense. Because it's no disqualifications. There are no repercussions for getting in unless you get beat up. Why was Omos just standing there staring at the ring the whole time?
Well, the ridiculousness of this is, first of all, it's ridiculous to even have two TLC matches on a show if you want to have any sort of value to the matchup together. And it's even funnier is that with two TLC matches on a show named after the brand stipulation, neither of them were the main event.
We'll get to that. God, that also got on my nerves. Do you remember in 2012 when they had the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view where an Elimination Chamber match started the show and there was another one later in the show and they closed with an ambulance match between John Cena and Kane? How awful that was.
But did we not all embrace the hate?
Yes, I did. I embraced the hate on that.
Yeah, it was, see, so job done. What can you say?
Or like in 2010 when they didn't... Well, at least they closed in 2010 with a chairs match. They closed with the C.
Yeah, that was pretty rough.
And it also sucked. Why?
And we also had that one tables, ladders, chairs, and stairs pay-per-view.
Oh my god. The stairs match between Eric Rowan and Big Show.
Bad.
Where Eric Rowan is supposed to be an intellectual genius and Big Show's the smart one because he pins him with the steel steps.
Bad.
This company has a history of just being stupid.
And I guess my overall point here is, if you wanted to have any sort of value left to TLC, I would have just had this be a singles match.
Yeah.
And you could do a lot of the same stuff. And Drew versus AJ in a singles match would have completely stolen this show.
Absolutely.
Without a doubt. I mean, and it would have been, I think that it would have just been a little bit better than what we actually got here, because it just went long, and then all the moves, you saw everything. You saw chairs, you saw ladders, you saw tables now, so how is any of that supposed to hold value later?
And also, The Miz came in, him and John Morrison trying to cash in. I did think it was hilarious when Omos was just holding The Miz and slowly walking him towards the edge and then just slinging him into the table as gently as possible. I thought that was really funny. But there are two things about this. On the plus side, thank God Miz is not going to be WWE champion. Thank God. My prayers have been answered. On the bad side, though, my God, Money in the Bank is useless now.
Yeah.
What was the point?
That's another gimmick that's dead.
What was the point of Money in the Bank this entire year? They started it by giving it to Otis.
No. You got to back up. They started it by eliminating it as a match altogether and making it a cinematic bullshit for 20 minutes that included Brother Goddamn Love and John Laurinaitis, where everyone was running up the towers and the fucking demon puppet Vince McMahon just goes out and squawks at people until Otis accidentally wins the belt, where they have rings on top of the tower so they could still just proceed to have a normal match.
And so they did that.
And the women are competing at the same time, no less.
Otis has the briefcase for God knows what reason. I guess Vince just thought it was funny. This walking, talking turd has the Money in the Bank briefcase. He loses it to Miz because his partner Tucker turned on him, and we have heard nothing about that since.
Gone.
That has not been followed up on at all.
At all.
Just so Miz could waste his cash in. What was the point of all of this?
And here's the kicker. This is what John Morrison came back for.
My God.
Fuck me. You said the profanity was going to come pretty quick, and boy did it.
The creativity in this company is dead. This company is creatively bankrupt. They are coming up with, in fact, they are coming up with creative ways to be awful.
Yeah,
Jesus.
It's a gift. It's a gift to come up with even better ways to suck.
Like, normally I don't complain about booking that much. It's just like some storylines, and like my things are usually just what's happening in the storyline, what's confined to the pay-per-view matches, and all this. When the booking's this bad that I'm burying it, that's when you know. But this has been going on all year, and just stuff like this all year, and even before then.
It's no surprise that they're, ratings-wise, in the absolute worst spot they've ever been in.
I so badly want them to dip below 1 million viewers for Raw. They need it.
They do.
They need this kick in the pants.
Yeah, I agree. And one of the nice things, though, AJ was at the top, and Drew McIntyre grabbed the chair and threw it at AJ's head, but it landed flat, so AJ got it flat in his face. Please take note, Sammy Guevara, because that is how you throw a steel chair.
Yeah.
Not fucking the top piece first, not back seat first, so that it hits him square in the temple.
So as far as like the match itself, I liked, Sean did not like, but both me and Sean can agree that the booking around it is absolutely atrocious.
Yeah,
It's the story of the show.
Yeah. And you know, as a main, if this were a main event with people, it would have been great. But in the context, in a vacuum, it was long, it was spotty, it buried multiple gimmick matches,
Yep.
some that weren't even on the show
Yep.
in one match, and it sucked. I'm sorry. And I like AJ, and I like Drew, and I like The Miz, and Morrison. I know you don't like The Miz, but I like The Miz too. This, in no fault to any of the people's involved, this match was bad.
I somewhat disagree, but I understand completely why you have that opinion. Me, I enjoyed the match for what it was, but I will agree it would have hugely benefited from a crowd and a main event position.
Well, in order to break the tie, let's head over to our third man in the booth.
Yes, Skyler Noteberg. All right.
Skyler Noteberg.
Yes, Skyler Noteberg.
You know what? That's his name from now on.
Yes. It's Shinsake Nakamura and Skyler Noteberg.
That's wonderful.
Alright, so he says, Drew McIntyre versus AJ Styles with Omos for the WWE title, TLC. You know, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, and I am humbled WWE decided to book NWL's first main event, Drew McIntyre versus AJ Styles from NWL Revolution. And
Now, for those of you who don't understand that, you got to check up, because I think he forgets that this is your show.
yes.
Because it is the Totally Awesome Podcast. For those of you who want the overlying context of that, feel free to join the Court Martial Podcast,
Yes.
which you can like, share, and subscribe, and hit the bell button for, and you can get all of the context, and we will bring you up to speed there. Continue.
Bat padding aside, this match was great because of the talent involved, and glad we got to see this first-time matchup in action. By the way, the video package with AJ Styles saying he has won a TLC match before does not show Jon Moxley's face because AEW reasons. I noticed that as well. AJ Styles wisely goes for the knee of Drew McIntyre, like they do in every Drew McIntyre match, as Sean noted, while Drew uses his power to overwhelm AJ, just as I booked it 6 months ago. There was a series of spots, each more impressive than the next. Drew McIntyre knife-edge chopping AJ from the top rope to the floor. Drew suplexing a ladder, almost hitting Styles. He did hit Styles. AJ did not move out of the
Yeah,
way.
he tried.
AJ's two calf crushers through the ladder and chair. Drew McIntyre picking up AJ Styles from the ladder as AJ was climbing like a small child and yeeting him from the ring through the table. I did not add that. That's what's in the notes, and I very much appreciate the correct usage of the word yeet. Both AJ and Drew brought it, clearly showing how important the WWE title is. Oh, I disagree with that. This show did not show how important the WWE title. This year has shown me that the WWE title is not important.
And poor Drew McIntyre, because people are going to point at him for that, and he's probably the last person I blame for that.
He is trying his best.
He's been great. Everything around him has sucked.
Oh, I love this next part. How important the WWE title is, and putting on a great match thus far, and nothing could possibly ruin it. Miz runs in and cashes in Money in the Bank. Damn it. So Miz comes in and cashes in Money in the Bank, ruining my boner. Fantastic. Thank you, Skyler, for the visuals.
Alright.
Skyler Bonerberg, but almost saves this by throwing Miz through a table and chasing off scared John Morrison after John broke a chair over Omos's back. Morrison's selling of fear of Omos was awful, especially when he had to force himself to trip over stuff. AJ takes a wild fall from the top of the ladder to the floor while fighting Miz thanks to McIntyre pushing him off. Also props to McIntyre for making Styles bleed hard way by slamming AJ's face into the ladder. The Miz eats a Claymore, which was beautifully sold. Then Big Daddy Drew McIntyre climbs the ladder and grabs the championship and wins as McIntyre should. This match was great, even with the interference, and got rid of the Money in the Bank Miz, which I am happy for. I like Miz, but he was not built up enough to beat McIntyre, and better get it out of the way now. Based on what we know from Raw, we may be getting Sheamus versus McIntyre next, which is Hoss. Alrighty. So there are things in that I do agree with. I did think this was I would say it was a really good match. I wouldn't say it was great. I do not think the WWE title is being presented as important. I do think, while I am happy that The Miz is no longer Mr. Money in the Bank and will not be WWE Champion, I do think that this entire year has made the Money in the Bank gimmick just laughable. But, you know.
Yeah. No, and considering that, like, when they put it on Otis, they had literally no plan for him. Because, like, every week you hear, oh, he's going to do this. And then it's like, oh, wait, no, they're going to do this. And then every week they're going to wait, oh, wait, no, they're going to do this. And then, like, a week later, be like, oh, The Miz has got it now. Okay, now what? It's like, there's no thought process week to week, which is why their continuity suffers so bad.
Maybe it would help if every day Vince didn't wake up and say, oh, I just had an idea, or oh, I didn't like this, I'll rewrite the entire show. Maybe if he would stop doing that.
Maybe if he didn't have the attention span of a gerbil.
Maybe if he wasn't in charge anymore, the show would suck less.
Yeah. Well,
but that's not going to happen for like another 10 years.
We've been barking up that tree for years. It's going to... I'll tell you what, though, we're getting closer.
That tree will come down when I have grandkids. Paul Heyman interview.
Maybe sooner than we think.
Paul Heyman interview. Paul Heyman's burn of Kayla Braxton with aesthetics over competency, I see, regarding her orange outfit and general terribleness was great. Noted NASCAR fan Paul Heyman's promo of Kevin Owens getting hurt by Roman Reigns at TLC later was a good touch, and glad Paul gets a chance to talk when Roman is not telling him to shut up or must stand in the corner and look scared while Roman Reigns works. Alright, I didn't really pay attention to this. I kind of skipped through it.
I saw Heyman's NASCAR promo. It was good. It was Heyman. It was animated. It was WWE format. So really stilted, a whole lot of like really whisper talking.
Yeah.
Instead of anyone firing a promo. I mean, Heyman's great, don't get me wrong, but it's a Heyman promo with NASCAR. The one thing I did like about this was that Heyman is like, what? You think I'm going to sit here and tell Kevin Owens what we're going to do? No, I'm not that dumb. Like, it's like, no, we're going to do what we got to do, and that's that.
All right. Our next match, Sasha Banks defending the SmackDown Women's Championship against Carmella. I thought this match was surprisingly decent.
I agree. I actually liked this one. I thought this was, it was solid. I wouldn't say I liked it, but it was solid for what it accomplished. I thought that Sasha needed a win like this to keep her reign going, to kind of start breaking the stigma that she's had about losing every championship match she's in when she's defending as champion. They're actually starting to try to turn that around.
Yes.
Carmella, I know that I'm going to have it out with Sky about this. I think Carmella, when you look at some of the women that they have on the roster, like Dana Brooke and Lana, and some of those people who are really, really bad, I would take Carmella as a worker more than a lot of other people on this roster.
Oh, I agree.
Including people like Lacey Evans, mind you, and the Riot Squad, and quite a few.
Like Carmella before her hiatus, I would disagree, but she appears to have improved a lot. Like, a lot.
I think her new music is good. I'm good. I'm glad she's not Iggy Azalea anymore.
Yes.
Because that's what she was beforehand. I like that they've given her a little bit more personality. She's got that Vicky Guerrero type voice that just makes you hate it,
yes,
which makes her a great heel.
I will say her snapping all the time is a bit too cartoonish for me, but that's just a nitpick. She's not Thanos.
That's the worst that she's doing. Also speaks to her as well.
Yes. When her and Sasha were transitioning between submission holds, like she kept going for the Code of Silence and Sasha kept trying to go for the bank statement, I was so impressed by how solidly they went in between transitions. They did not screw up at all. I was very impressed with that.
Yeah, Carmella has really improved a lot. I think her promos are so much better than they used to be. Her voice is still very much unlikable, so that's good to know. But like the thing with the wine and things like that, I think Reginald is a terrible name for anyone involved in pro wrestling, and whoever came up with that for that guy should be shot.
I actually kind of like it because it's obnoxious, and he's like her male valet. So with the gimmick she has, him being her like bodyguard or whatever, it works for him because it plays off the obnoxiousness of it.
That's fine. I just think the name sucks.
Oh, that's fine. I think they did that on purpose.
But I like him there though. I mean, it was funny that Kevin Dunn started drowning out Greg the Hamwich Hamilton's introductions.
Yes.
Because he's so superly overly animated when he does his ring announcing. Not as bad as Justin Roberts, but bad.
Now, I will say there were a few things I did not like about this match. For one, there were several points where Reginald interfered to the point where I was like, how is the referee not ejecting him from ringside? Like, yanking Carmella out of the ring, dodging and helping. He helped her do a move to Sasha in this match in front of the referee, and the referee just stood there and did nothing.
And you know it makes no sense when even Michael Cole's like, that's got to be illegal, isn't it?
Yeah, but I will say, this is the same referee. This is the same referee that did the whole, Seth, that's not you. You're better than this at that terrible Hell in a Cell match. So I'm used to this particular referee being awful at his job.
Oh, we'll talk about that Hell in a Cell match a little bit later because I got a point to make involving that match.
But also, speaking of things that got on my nerves, Sasha Banks doing the Three Amigos there and the Frog Splash. That in itself did not annoy me. It's Michael Cole saying, look, she's doing the Eddie Guerrero moves. Everyone think about Eddie Guerrero now. Isn't Eddie great? Too bad he's dead. It's just so irritating.
I hate it. I genuinely hate it because it does nothing to get the actual person over.
Yes.
It literally diminishes them by bringing up somebody better.
And then he has the temerity to say, just like Eddie. That did not look anywhere near as good as the way Eddie did it, and it legitimately got on my nerves when he said, just like Eddie.
Well, and I'm going to bring this point up now rather than later. I think only one person should do the Frog Splash, and I think it should be Kevin Owens.
Yep.
Because Kevin Owens, he's a solid 140 pounds heavier than Sasha Banks. So
I imagine Sasha Banks giving anyone a frog splash would feel like, you know, when your dog jumps on your lap, it doesn't hurt, it's just mildly annoying. She does not have the mass that would make that actually hurt.
You could make that case about women's wrestling in general. But,
yeah.
We would very quickly be labeled misogynist and sexist in that we don't want to see women's wrestling, which is not the case.
Can you imagine Riho doing a frog splash?
Riho can barely get a double stomp to look official. And that's her only move, no less.
I just got a text message. We've officially been canceled by Twitter. So there goes that.
I bet we have. So then there was a lot of hair pulling, which was I liked Mella's rope assisted head scissors, which was cool. And then with the kick, there was really good stuff between both of them.
Yeah.
This is one of Sasha's better matches. I'm usually not a big Sasha fan, but she was okay. She did a good job here. Corey Graves, of course, throwing in the ultimate cliche of what do I have to do? Well, he's got the load in his pants, talking about his girlfriend.
Yeah.
And at least I will say this: I'm going to give another props to Kevin Dunn here, which I don't like to do because I usually very much enjoy hating him. At least he pumped in zero chance tonight.
Can you imagine if he pumped in Eddie chants? I actually would have turned the TV off.
But it was noise. It was noise, but it wasn't fan chants. And that was one of the things that really bothered me about Survivor Series.
I forgot to mention, speaking of that, there was a point in the Drew McIntyre AJ match where Drew did a chop, and you heard the loudest, most unnatural woo of all time.
Yeah.
That was a soundbite. So that was incredibly phony, but...
Well, there's a lot of phony things on this show.
Oh, yeah.
Most of them in do involve Kevin Dunn. But I will have to say, to his credit, he is catching on to certain things that's making it at least a fraction more palatable.
Yeah.
And
now,
and then
me and you both enjoyed this match. We both thought this was a good match. Let's turn over to our boy Skyler Noteberg to see how much he enjoyed this match.
He didn't. It's a spoiler.
Sasha Banks versus Carmella for the SmackDown Women's title. As I was watching Carmella's entrance, I could not help but think to myself, this is the first time I've seen a girl's ass up close and said, damn, this is going to suck. No offense to Carmella, but for this next sentence, Joshua, I want you to clap every word for emphasis, okay? Women wearing sexy clothes and makeup while wrestling is a terrible gimmick. That was wildly obnoxious, Skyler, but I agree.
I don't know if that's really her gimmick, though.
That's women's wrestling in WWE in general. They all have to wear like at least 3 pounds of makeup.
Yes,
which is ridiculous because they're wrestling.
You didn't like Ronda Rousey's wingtips?
No. Now, her trying to do her best to look like a bird was some of the most ridiculous looking crap I've ever seen.
Well, what about Becky Lynch's metallic purple owl eyes?
Where they were genuinely trying to make her look hideous?
Yeah. The makeup's hit and miss with them, man.
Yeah.
Real hit and miss.
He says, it is not Carmella's fault because WWE has been doing this with 95% of their women talent since the 90s, especially blondes. Also, for the love of God, Corey, we know you and Carmella sleep with each other. I do not need to listen to your thirsty ass. I do not need to hear the words Melibration from Corey or it's boss time from Cole ever again. I agree. Sasha and Carmella have practically the same gimmick except Sasha has blue hair. I disagree. Although I will say another instance of WWE being terrible with logic. They changed Sasha's music from like her normal music to her super I'm a heel music when she joined Bayley with the blue hair. She's a babyface now, and she still has the dark, ominous I'm a heel now music.
You know what they should play? They should play Eddie's 2005 Dominic's My Son music for her, seeing how she's Eddie Guerrero.
Yes. They should just start playing We Lie, We Cheat, We Steal.
They should have her sit in the chair in the middle of the ring and just look sad for like 5 minutes and then leave.
They need to have her come in with like Snoop Dogg's vehicle and pump the hydraulics.
Yeah, they should just completely rip off Eddie's gimmick.
Just make her Sasha Guerrero.
Replica of Eddie Guerrero.
Also, Carmella's friend Reginald Thomas is a poor woman's Omos, and if you're going to have 2 matches with 2 black supporters outside the ring, space the matches apart so it is not as noticeable. Also, Sasha doing stuff in homage to Eddie is great and all, but can we not do this every time she does the 3 Inigo suplex or frog splash? Just because Eddie is her hero does not mean I need to hear it every time, Michael Cole. This match was fine for what it was, and both women tried hard, and there is an audience for it. But for me, Carmella is limited as AF. Thank you for censoring that, Skyler, as unnecessary as it was. And Sasha can only do so much. When you have no emotional investment in either wrestler, a match becomes a slog to get through, and this one felt like it was forever. Also, WWE, you have Carmella drinking cheap-ass champagne as a gimmick, but you literally have WWE wines you could have promoted. Better yet, you could have used Carmella's own wine label for her gimmick. Product placement, please.
Wait, okay, having her use her own wine, yes, that makes more sense.
Yes,
but
I agree.
I love the idea of Carmella just popping out an Ultimate Warrior bottle and just popping that in the middle of the thing. Just being like, yeah, that's right, Ultimate Warrior wine. Let's go with that. It's like, oh, I'm going to have a taste of the dead man, just like Sasha Banks.
Oh my God. Wow.
That's... They missed an opportunity there. I have to 100% agree with Sky. That would have been some quality entertainment.
Oh my God, we are terrible, and I love it. Up next was the Billy Kay segment with Asuka.
Kill me. Stop this.
It's just more cornball WWE humor that is not funny unless you're literally a 5-year-old with Down syndrome. Okay, now that's me going too far.
Let me put it this way. All right, every backstage segment that WWE does that isn't an interview with Paul Heyman or one person or doesn't involve the Hurt Business is cancer.
It's garbage. It is awful.
It's bad. It's just bad.
And also, this actually set up for something that pissed me off later in the show. Okay, the crux of this is Billie Kay wants to be Asuka's partner. Asuka says, I already found a partner. Later, when they're starting the tag match, Todd Phillips is like, did Asuka find a partner? Yes! She already said that a couple segments ago. The people on the show don't watch the show, so why should I?
Well, because, I mean, they don't even listen to each other.
I hate the show. Okay, I did not hate this pay-per-view, but the presentation of the show, the logic behind it, and everything like that is absolute dumpster fire, cancerous garbage.
Yeah, nine times out of 10, it's not the talent that I ever have an issue with. It's presentation. It's always presentation and how they go about doing their stuff, and that's a perfect example. I mean, and also, can we please stop with like the teardroplet face paint with Asuka? I mean, I'm kind of done with Asuka in general, which we'll talk about a little bit later.
Yeah, same. But up next we had the Raw Tag Team Championship match, which was the New Day, which was Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods defending against the Hurt Business, Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander. Before we get into the match, can I just say that it is 2020 and we are still watching Shelton Benjamin and Kofi Kingston in tag team title matches. Think about that.
The more things change, the more they stay the same, WWE.
Can you remember, Kofi Kingston is a former WWE champion a year ago. You would not know if you were a new fan.
Shelton Benjamin was Intercontinental Champion in 2005.
And United States Champion in 2008 and 2009.
And Tag Team Champion, and then he lost to Sasha Banks and Tajiri. I mean, Eddie Guerrero and Tajiri in the 2003 match.
Nice. I like that. This felt like a really good TV match.
So before this match goes on, we have Charlie Caruso with the New Day, and there's only one thing I gotta say about this. When they did their whole WWE, blah, 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 when they did that, it reminded me how much I really like watching Charlie Caruso shake her hips, and how much I don't like watching the New Day do it. Call me crazy, but I'd rather see Charlie Caruso shake her hips more.
You know what? I am inclined to agree.
I'm just saying.
Although I'm more into real women like my girlfriend and not robot women like every interviewer on WWE.
Well, true. I will give you that. You know, and boy, if there was $1 for every Botox lip in WWE, you could open up a savings account. Because, good God, there are a lot of them.
Yes, we will get to that we will get to that in the Asuka match later tonight.
Yes. Well, anyway, so one thing that bothered me in this match is that they started this with Cedric Alexander running in and Kofi getting a quick super kick, like he was about to finish the match, and like it could have ended that close and blah blah blah, and you wouldn't have been able to tell because they sped right by it, and they just started going in a whole bunch of moves, and it revealed to me one thing that frustrates the hell out of me with this company and their matches, because they do it one of two ways. It's either David Letterman on the Merritt Parkway going 135 miles an hour, or it's Grandma on the freeway in the left lane going 30. And everyone's behind them honking the horns hoping that they speed this shit up, and they don't want to speed it up. Either that, or everyone's going 100 miles an hour and you can't follow any of the moves or the meaning behind them.
This match literally started it felt like this match started in the middle of the match. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it literally was just like, oh, tons of spots. The New Day doing their best Young Bucks impression.
Like they immediately just went straight to the races, guns a-blazing, 100 miles per hour, within a split second of the match starting, and I was like, okay, can we, like, build up to anything here?
No, this was, the New Day, we're paying homage to the Young Bucks by, like, let's do as little tag team as action. Honestly, I thought the New Day looked pretty bad in this match. The Hurt Business looked awesome.
The Hurt Business is one of the best things in WWE right now.
Agreed. I mean, with MVP, the way they were doing great work. They were cutting off the ring. They were doing good tag stuff. Mm-hmm. They were getting good tags up until the very end, which we'll talk about in a second.
I did think it was funny when Shelton Benjamin had Kofi Kingston on his shoulders and he almost dropped him, and he was just like, oh. And Kofi was like, all right, Cedric, can you hurry up a little bit? I don't think Shelton can hold me any longer. Just so Cedric could miss. I did think that was funny.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There was I liked MVP just like when Cedric got hit as this whole 100-mile-an-hour thing. MVP just like pops up in a water bottle. It's like, here, have some water, man. It's like that's the kind of manager you want.
Yes.
Guy who pops out a water bottle is like, nah, have some get some water.
But yeah, like this match was just a bunch of high spots with more teamwork towards the Hurt Locker side. And at the end, they had...
Hurt Business. This is not Jeremy Renner doing a bomb movie in Iraq.
Okay, all right. I, for some reason, like, Bobby Lashley's finishing move has a similar name to the tag team, which makes sense, but it also messes my brain up. The Hurt Business, excuse me. So, Shelton Benjamin is about to win the match, and for some reason, they are already teasing dissension amongst the ranks. Way too early. Way too early. And then Cedric hits the lumbar check and wins the match. I will say I like that the Hurt Business has a bunch of championships on them. It makes them feel like a more intimidating unit that actually wins stuff. Although, are they baby faces or are they heels? I have no idea.
If this match were anything to go by, they were heels.
But weren't they just baby faces against Retribution?
But you better stop with that continuity stuff, man. I need a foghorn. Every time that you start to add some logic, I'm just go.
I actually feel like they do that in meetings where they plan out these shows. Anytime someone makes a little bit of sense, they're like, "Stop that! Demotion!"
There's no place for that here. It's like that meme where the guy gets thrown out the window.
Yes, for making too much sense.
Yes, it's just all of that. But, it started out fast. It ended up being a big spot fest until Hurt Business slowed it down.
Yes.
And then the hot tag to Kofi went well. It did go a little long after that. And then, you know me, I'm not a big fan of backslap tags, and they both did it, but only once did both do it. At least with the Hurt Business's one, it made sense in the context of what they were trying to do, but I don't like the fact they're teasing dissension this early. Let them ride high with these tag belts.
Yes.
It's like, it's not the time for dissension. This would have been much better as a definitive win.
Like, why are you doing this right when the Hurt Business has a bunch of gold? Let them have it for a while.
It didn't make any sense to do the dissension stuff now. There was...
God, the booking on this show sucks.
It didn't mean anything at the end of the match anyway, so...
Decent match, awful booking. The story of the show.
Yeah, the match was good. Let me rephrase that. Cedric and Shelton were good. The New Day I was real disappointed in because they were just being some colorful Young Bucks. Oh, wait, that's the Young Bucks. They were just being the Young Bucks, and then the finish was kind of dumb because it's just the wrong time for it.
Yeah.
What do you think, Grammar Notes Sky?
All right, going back over to this. The New Day versus the Hurt Business for the Raw Tag Team Championships. And in big, bold letters, he writes, Black on Black Violence Part 2, double the black, double the violence.
I just want to go on record to remind everyone that these are his words. These are Skyler's words.
Oh, my God.
So... This is, the disclaimer is in the description.
Yes, I agree, Skyler. This was the hood part of the show, but...
Oh my God! No punches pulled here, ladies and Josh.
No, you thought you were listening to family-friendly, classy entertainment. You were wrong.
No, sir.
Now now that I have brought down the class of this show, what class are you talking about, Skyler? This match was good. Shine the Babyfaces was good by the New Day. I disagree. And I love their offense. I disagree. Shelton Benjamin is a great veteran hand who can lead a match. I agree. And Alexander, as the young high flyer, has great ability. That's very obvious. When Kofi got caught by Shelton Benjamin on the boom drop, it was in an electric chair position, while my brain is going. While Alexander was about to come off the top rope, it was not the smoothest transition. That's putting it very mildly.
Yeah.
You could clearly see Kofi motioning towards Alexander to hurry up and jump off because Shelton could not hold Kofi much longer. It is a small detail. While I like Kofi's awareness, it gave it away. That was otherwise an amazing sequence. It had a lot of collaboration to make it work. I wouldn't say amazing sequence. The finishing sequence was good, but I do not like teasing Alexander being selfish. Either way, it works fine, and hey, MVP in the Hurt Business, besides Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton, has been the best thing on Raw this year and totally deserve all the championship gold. Also, Prime Alexander sounds like a great gimmick name for Cedric. I think that Skyler was drinking a little bit of Carmella's wine when he wrote that, but alright.
He's been chugging a little bit too much of the nog.
Prime Alexander. That sounds terrible. But we also we just got over Shorty G, so the sky's the limit, I guess.
Hey, I made Shorty G work. You gave me a challenge. Speaking of going back to my thing, Shorty G was a very possible gimmick. WWE just doesn't know how to handle what they got.
They don't know how to handle good gimmicks.
Yeah.
As we'll see with the main event.
And speaking of some things that end up being bad, one thing I do appreciate, just to touch on the commentary a little bit, I like Samoa Joe's effort to add energy to the commentary table, but he does it at times that don't need that kind of excitement.
And he also just all the time drops the most obvious, like, no kidding, like, sound bites all the time, where I'm like, he just points out something that's incredibly obvious, and I'm just like, Samoa Joe, stop. I'm not blind, but...
in all fairness, they treat all of their fans like their children anyway, but Joe is like the least defender of most of them. I think that he just tries a little too hard, but he does. He's probably the most palatable of any commentator they've got.
At least he knows what a powerbomb is, and at least he knows what a ladder is, but we'll get to that later.
Yes, we will.
Up next was the Sammy Awards segment. Okay, most of the time, WWE's references to pop culture and humor in general is absolutely appalling, and it makes you want to rip your eyes out and eat them. The Sammy Awards segment where they spoofed Tom Cruise was genuinely hilarious, specifically because it was Sami Zayn. I very much appreciated that.
Sammy might be one of the most entertaining people WWE's got right now. Pound for pound.
Although, if I were writing it, I would have put in Sammy, like, I would have put in some references to the Christian Bale meltdown, where it was like, oh, what are you over there doing? Oh, I just thought that would have been funny to write in. Oh, good for you! And how was it? Just something like that. That would have entertained the crap out of me, but...
I can't imagine that Vince McMahon even knows who Christian Bale is.
You got a point there.
Let alone anything that has to do with Batman or anything involving celebrities that are not shown to him in his seat. And as we get into this next match,
before that, Skyler does have an opinion on the Sammy Awards segment.
Okay.
And he addresses you specifically. Sean, my guy, you need an outfit like the one Big E has because damn, you look good in that white shirt, black suspender, and red tie and belt combo. Maybe you could dress up for the CMP award show? Also, if anyone could pull off a Tom Cruise parody of getting angry, it would be Sami Zayn. Kayla giving Sammy crap about the leaked audio was good stuff after she got burned by Paul Heyman earlier on.
All right.
So he issued you a challenge to dress up in like a suit like Sami Zayn did.
Well, first of all, it's not going to be a live stream, so there will be no suiting up. Second of all, I dress better than Big E anyway. Third of all, I'm glad he brought up Big E's attire because this is a point I wanted to make at the pre-show. I would like to see Big E wear something else. I think the really fruity colored singlet just does not match him anymore.
It's the same thing like when Kofi was WWE champion, where he was still acting goofy, throwing pancakes, and you just couldn't take him seriously.
Yeah, the only time I ever liked pancake hucking was when they did it to Jinder Mahal at the Rumble.
That was funny. That was
hysterical. After that, just like the pancakes, it got real stale real fast.
Yes. Haha, I see what you did there. But anyway, moving on. Our next match, we had Asuka and a mystery opponent versus Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler for the WWE Women's Tag Team titles. Not gonna lie, during the majority of this, I was having some issues with my laptop, and the issues with my laptop were more... I was more invested in my laptop than this match.
Well, you didn't miss much, my friend.
And the reason for that, there are many reasons for that. A, I do not care about Asuka. B, I do not care about Charlotte. C, I do not care about Nia Jax. D, like the same issue Skyler had with the Carmella Sasha Banks match where he didn't care about either wrestler, so it was hard for him to get into it. I didn't care about any of these people, so I was just like, it was like watching images move on a screen. I didn't care.
Well, of all the matches that I have on my notes, this is the one I wrote the least for.
Yeah. There was nothing to it.
It was just there. It was fine.
And also, speaking of the horrible booking and the horrible logic in this company, this was the culmination of the Lana storyline. They spent all that time having Nia Jax put Lana through so many tables, just beating her up, to have Lana have that small victory at Survivor Series, and then have Lana beat Nia Jax a few times. You would think that it would set up for Lana putting Nia Jax through a table to win the tag team titles. No. It led to Lana getting hurt to where she's not even involved in the storyline anymore, so Charlotte swoops in and wins the tag team titles. So what was the point of all the stuff with Lana for months? There was no point.
Well, because Miro went to AEW. That was the point.
Was the whole thing just to bury Lana for that?
Suffer. Would you put it past them?
No, I mean, it makes sense, but it doesn't make for good television, although Nia Jax putting Lana through a table over and over and over and over is absolutely hilarious.
I think how that woman is still walking after 9 consecutive weeks of tables was amazing to me. So I have some notes. I'm going to air out some grievances here. Number 1, I wish we could have replaced Asuka too. Here's why. For someone so prominently in the women's title picture, she has probably been the least important women's wrestler on this roster.
You forgot she was champion.
I did forget. I actually completely forgot she was Raw Women's Champion heading into this match because her entire time let's look at Asuka from WrestleMania on. Barely was on WrestleMania. Did she even have a match?
She was. It was her.
A tag match.
It was her and Kairi Sane against Nikki Cross and Alexa Bliss for the tag team titles. I don't know how I remember that.
And that was when we had the worst crowd pandering of all time.
Yep.
It was absolutely terrible. That's how it started. Let's start there. After that, then Becky Lynch announces, "I'm going to have my baby," and she decides that she's going to give it to Asuka. So Asuka just takes the belt. Then she defends against, I forget which one of them, Sasha or Bayley. But she spends the next 4 or 5 months in matches against Sasha Banks and Bayley, where she's not even the focal point because the whole point is the feud and family feud between Sasha Banks and Bayley, where she was in 2 title matches. She was in a Raw Women's Championship match and a SmackDown Women's Championship match on the same night, and she was not the focal point of either match. Even though she won one, she's had multiple women's championships all the entire time of this year, and yet she feels less valuable now than she did when this year started. Because it's oversaturation. Honestly, her wrestling has regressed. And she has been so typecast into the typical overly animated, screeching Japanese woman that any character or personality she had is out the window because they turned her into a goof.
You are absolute. That is 100% accurate. Especially the idea that she is an afterthought even though she is the champion. Why does this company put a belt on someone and just do nothing with them? They do the same thing with Drew McIntyre, except at least Drew's a good wrestler, and even though they don't place him well on the card, he does win most of the time, and he's presented as credible. But still, like, he is not placed well on the card. Asuka is irrelevant, even though she's the champion. Just why are they obsessed with making their champions look bad?
Well, because I think they're more obsessed with making sure that nobody gets over. Because they'd rather have people under and want to come see WWE, the brand, rather than everyone wanting to come to WWE to see the wrestler.
That sounds like a model for failure.
Because Vince McMahon now has huge insecurity issues because, Hogan left me, Dwayne left me, John Cena left me. Now nobody's ever leaving me again before I kill him.
I'll never let anyone get popular again.
It's literally, I believe that deep down, Vince McMahon is still hurt by Brett leaving for WCW. I truly believe that. I believe that Vince McMahon has repressed every emotion he's ever felt ever. And so it's just led to this moment. And one day he's going to go to a therapist and he's just going to cry for like 15 hours and die.
No, he's going to go to a therapist, and in 10 minutes the therapist he went to is going to seek another realm of employment.
She's going to take 10 minutes with Vince, and then the therapist is going to call for a therapist.
Yes, just a never-ending chain of therapists calling their therapist.
Vince McMahon just takes up every therapist in America. The entire system, the entire line of work is just completely destroyed.
It's like that SpongeBob thing of a never-ending chain of mailmen delivering mail to other mailmen. It just sets off a never-ending chain, and no one ever gets therapy again because all of the therapists are woefully depressed.
See what you started, Asuka? This is Asuka's fault.
Yes, this is Asuka's fault.
So,
also, again, as I mentioned earlier, before Charlotte comes out, Todd's like, "Did Asuka get a partner? ? I'm going to declare at the TV so the audience will answer, I don't know, even though that question was already answered in a promo that he clearly didn't watch. I don't blame him because it sucked, but still, it insults my intelligence, and that's why I get annoyed. So Charlotte comes out. Speaking of Botox, Charlotte comes out.
Honestly, I thought that she thinned her face out a little bit.
It's still noticeable. It's still noticeable.
Still noticeable. She did get some work done, but here's the thing I noticed. And the thing that and speaking of things that suck, I want to get this through your brains for anyone who thinks that being an imitation toy company that involves wrestlers is cool. Velcro belts will never not suck. They will always be the absolute worst. Just put some snaps on it, for God's sakes. How much could a snap, 10 snaps made out of brass, possibly cost? $2 that you're selling a belt for $5.99 for?
Oh, that is gross. Wait, do you mean $5.99 or $500?
I'm talking about the replica belts that they sell for like $4.99, $5.99. Who in their right mind is paying that for fucking Velcro? Just put some snaps. If you don't want to do it for your replicas, fine. Do it for the ones you put on TV, for God's sakes. You're a wrestling company, for crying out loud. Have some belts that look respectable.
No, they're not, Sean. They're a company that puts smiles on faces.
They're a toy company disguised as wrestlers.
They're a company that puts smiles on faces and burns people alive.
Well, it's Vince McMahon wanting to be the Walt Disney of wrestling, and he's got it right down to the Nazi T. I mean, I kid. I accuse, but I do not have any evidence to support that fact.
It sounds accurate to me, but whatever. Also, I know how much you hate Charlotte's natural selection finishing move, which it did look awful tonight. Her Uranagi backbreaker is the worst thing I have ever seen in my life. Her Uranagi backbreaker, like where she gets them under the arm and trips them awkwardly. She has to bend them onto her knee. It's so awkward looking. It never looks good, and then she just trips them. Just trip them, forget the backbreaker, it never looks good. It's always awful.
Charlotte's ring rust kind of showed in this match.
She's been doing that move for years, and it always looks terrible, and it stood out like the sun blinding me for some reason on this show. That backbreaker has got to go.
And I think a big part of that was that her ring rust really showed in this match. I mean, her comeback was blah. It's funny how Shayna versus Asuka in NXT, we were like creaming our pants for that. Mm-hmm. And now here we are on the main roster in 2020, and we're like, I don't want to see either of these people.
I could not care less.
What a travesty it is for Shayna Baszler.
It's the main event. It's the main roster curse. Do not go to the main roster.
But then here's the ridiculous thing, right? So they do this thing for Charlotte where they're like, could be anybody, and then Charlotte's music played, and where the spot where there was normally a pop, there was like a by Kevin Dunn, and I was like, you have countless Stone Cold Steve Austin pop, and Hulk Hogan pops, and Jello Pudding pops, and catering, I assume, all over the place. You have pops in your archives from everyone, and you couldn't pull any of those out to make a return pop happen.
Well,
you could put "This is awesome" into a match. You could put "Thank You Taker" into a retirement ceremony, but you can't find one measly pop to do for a return of somebody from 9 months ago.
Apparently not.
This is what I don't get it. It's like, and
the production and booking of the show sucks.
Yeah, Shayna now, all her stomps and her punches look softer.
Yeah.
She looks like she's pulling back, so she just looks bad. I will say you know who I thought actually looked halfway decent in this match, just because she knows how to work her size?
Nia Jax.
Was Nia Jax. If she didn't hurt people all the time, she'd be halfway decent. I'm not saying that she's going to be pulling a Steamboat Savage, but for the fact that she knows how to, if she were safer, I think for the fact that she really is different, if she didn't have her cutting Be a Star promos against the heel Alexa Bliss that got booed, she would be, I think, regarded much better than she currently is.
Ladies and gentlemen, again, despite some of the things we say on this show for jokes, 100% serious, we're not sexist. When we say this, we mean this like as in like the way the company uses them. The WWE Women's Division is garbage. It's shallow. There are hardly any decent workers. It's uninteresting. It's rehash. It sucks. Their men's division is okay.
You gotta remember, the thing about the women's division is that it's only been around for 5 years since Stephanie McMahon created women's wrestling.
Oh yeah, you're right. She invented it. She invented all of women's sports.
That's right. Trailblazer.
She's a trailblazer.
Still young, they're still coming. I can't even finish this with a straight face.
The women's division in this company is atrocious. Full stop.
there's no real investment in it. They had something with Becky Lynch and Ronda Rousey, and then ever since it has just fallen off a cliff.
And guess who's not in the division anymore? Ronda Rousey and Becky Lynch.
And who would have thought that in a match that involved Shayna Baszler, if you had said 2 years ago that a match involving Shayna Baszler, Nia Jax, Asuka, and Charlotte, that Nia Jax would be the most impressive looking of the bunch, you would have punched me in the face.
I would have asked you, what drugs are you taking, and can I have some?
But here we are in 2020, and that's honestly how I regarded this match. And then, in the same way that they do with Eddie Guerrero and Sasha Banks, look who's here. It's Ric freaking Flair.
Staring awkwardly at an angle at the TV, because no one in this company can look natural for 5 seconds.
If you want Charlotte to have her own identity, stop mentioning Rick and bringing him around all the time. It was one thing when he was her manager, but at this point, just stop.
But Sean, they won't know who she is if they don't.
Just please stop.
And whose fault is that, WWE, that no one knows who anybody is? Because the way you book people sucks.
It was bad. And Charlotte did a moonsault that they didn't catch her for, considering Nia Jax's size and Shayna Baszler's there.
I think that might be more Charlotte's fault because she kind of she like rotates a little too much on her moonsaults, where she lands on her feet all the time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, she's.
I mean, it's impressive. It's impressive looking.
She's in too.
It's impressive looking, but it's not dangerous and deadly looking, which is what I assume they should be going for.
Well, and not to mention she does it in every single match, so It's like, what's the point anymore?
Yep.
So, but I thought the thing that cracked me up more than anything else, which was like the title, like the cherry on top of the overall point I was making with Asuka, was the very end. Natural selection, 1, 2, 3, and they're like, ladies and gentlemen, your new tag team champions. Your Raw Women's Champion Asuka and Charlotte.
And did anyone else notice that Asuka accidentally got her 2 belts stuck together?
Oh God! It was just between the complete speed by of saying Asuka's name and making sure that Charlotte was the big star. Charlotte won the Grand Slam.
And they always zoomed the camera in on Charlotte.
Yep.
The only time you saw Asuka was when they panned out to see both of them.
Asuka was completely meaningless in this whole thing.
You know what? I think the Raw Women's Championship has just been vacant ever since Becky Lynch left.
At this point, they ought to just consolidate it and let it go, because they really do not have a women's division, a solid enough women's division on either brand to make it worth having 2 belts.
In 2016, before the brand split, the division was already very shallow. And like I said, it's too shallow to split. But what did they do? They split it, and here we are.
They split it when they only had 6 women on each brand.
Yep.
So
yep.
That was what they did, and here we are.
All right.
And then they did some sort of Braun Strowman 2020 CGI BS.
We'll get to that. Skyler's notes for this match: Asuka and question mark versus Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax for the WWE Women's Tag Team Championship.
Hold on, before you continue, for those NWA fans out there, if only it were the question mark, because the question mark got more over than anything else last year. So, changed my mind.
So, Lana is down and out thanks to the Pain Train, Nia Jax and Shayna, and no, that isn't their team name, but it should be. Who cares? Who cares what their team name is? So, who takes her place? The Queen, Charlotte Flair. Please don't call her that. Because, of course, it must be Charlotte Flair, and who else could it have been? Man, I have missed her. So did the ref too, because we got he got the ropes open for her to get through, and it helped take off her robe like a stooge. This was a decent tag match, although this was all clearly a showcase match for Charlotte, who immediately made her mark in the match. It is noticeably clear how badly the women's division needed a wrestler like her, because she alone has. This is not the most well-written thing I've ever seen. Because she alone has more star power than everyone on the roster put together. The women's roster, I hope that's what you're saying. And if that's the case, I really don't care about the women's division, so I'm not going to argue. Charlotte winning this match was natural selection. Sorry, Sean. And the tag titles.
Everybody knows I hate that.
Everybody
knows I hate that.
It is devolving. Like you say, Asuka's devolving. That move in particular is just devolving. Because I remember she used to hit it and it actually looked decent, but it's just devolving. And the tag titles now with double champion Asuka's great and all, but this is the Queen we're talking about, and would you all know the Queen does not play well with others, so we should probably start the countdown on Asuka's Raw title reign, because it's only a matter of time. Woo! We should also probably start the countdown on how long it takes for WWE to run Charlotte down our throats, and us wishing she were gone for 6 months again. My guess is 2 weeks. Sounds pretty accurate.
I got no offense against that.
WWE Superstars and Hero Animation 2021 beating up Monster Animation 2020 segment. I would like to apologize to Billie Kay about her cringe segment earlier because this is real cringe. I agree.
It was all real cringe.
Like, this is again WWE's terrible attempt to... We, even though we're run by a bunch of old people who clearly just need to go to a home, we can relate to the youngins out there. We're hip with those Zoomers. We can speak their language. That's what this was.
It was Braun Strowman voicing 2020.
It was. So that's why. That explains why it sucked.
That's why it was large, brown, and filthy.
This was just awkward.
It was bad.
Whenever WWE tries to relate to the young audience, it is so painful to sit through. It is so painful.
I want to know who conceptualized this idea, because that person should be fired, that person should be shot, that person should be buried underneath the prison, that person should be fed to mutant Ninja Turtles next to a pizza with a giant mental rat.
Wow.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, so up next, Sami Zayn, Big E, and R-Truth segment. At least we did not get any 24/7 title bullshit with R-Truth. I will agreed. We did not get anything with the 24/7 title. I don't know why that belt's still a thing. Also, Sami, I would not keep talking about being the Intercontinental Champion for much longer, because when Big E has his eyes set on gold, it is going to end up around his waist quick, and that is a thick waist. Sami Zayn has the single worst shirt in WWE history, #facts. Also, did you guys notice Sami Zayn appeared a lot on the show, and the segments felt like they were pre-recorded before the 8-man tag match on the show? You could tell because they were made... The way they were made never referenced Big E pinning Sami in the 8-man tag, which shows how thrown together that 8-man tag... It shows how thrown together the show was in every WWE show.
Yep.
And up next, we had... Honestly, either this or the first match, what should have been the main event of the show, Roman Reigns defending the Universal Championship against Kevin Owens for the Universal Championship, tables, ladders, and chairs. Sean, what did you think of this match?
Well, before I tell you what I think of this match, I'm going to answer what you just said before. I would have preferred that AJ and Drew not been at TLC at all. I would have preferred we not gotten that match and just gotten a singles match and had this main event, because this had a completely different tone that was worthy of a main event, of a match like this. I actually thought this was my favorite match of the show, as far as anything that involves weapons of any description.
You know, I honestly don't know which TLC match I liked more, but I do agree that this was a really good match.
Well, what I really want for Christmas is Kevin Owens to get a tan. I like him, and I've always had an issue with his in-ring attire. I would love for him to wear something else in the same way that I'd like Big E to wear something else. Maybe just swap. I'd like to see Big E in a tank top and shorts, and see Kevin Owens in a flowery singlet.
You know what? If you get a Kevin Owens Christmas wish, I get one. Stop using the stunner.
Yeah, it's not good.
Go back to the pop-up powerbomb. Or, as Michael Cole would call it, the pop-up spinebuster.
And, God, Cole was so bad in this matchup.
He's been doing this for over 20 years, and not only does he still keep messing move names up. He messed up a move name and the object the move was performed on.
Yeah, I was like, come on, man. It's like, well, it's like Tom Phillips. I didn't mention this in the match before, where Asuka got a roll up on Shayna Baszler. It's like, and there was a roll. He's like, roll up by Asuka, cover by Asuka, kick out by Asuka.
I didn't notice that.
And so it's all of them. It's the commentary, and you'd think that it was Cole's first day on the job.
You would think.
Given
every time you hear him, you think, is this his first day on the job? No, it's his, like, what? He started in 97. It's his 23rd year on the job.
Yeah, sad. And something occurred to me here in the beginning of this matchup. So I don't know how familiar you are, Mr. Geddon, with what Sting's been doing in AEW lately.
I am not. I have not watched AEW since COVID started.
So basically all that AEW has done with Sting since they got him is they turn down the lights, they throw in some fake snow, the lights turn into like a black light, he walks down to the ring, he stares at people for a little bit, and leaves. That's it.
Okay.
And that happened for like 3 weeks in a row, where he said very little. He just kind of stood around, and literally the lights would go out, the snow would come on, he'd walk around, he'd stare at people in the ring, and leave. It's like Lacey Evans, but Sting. So
the sassy Southern Belle Sting.
But you have to imagine that Sting is being paid millions of dollars by Tony Khan to just stand around and stare at people. Well, the reason I'm saying this is that I was watching Paul Heyman during this matchup, during this entrance with Roman Reigns, and all it is just Paul Heyman staring up at Roman Reigns and up at the Universal title, and it makes me think that there are people in wrestling getting paid good money to just stand around and stare at shit.
Yep.
What a career.
I know, right?
What a life.
Some easy money.
It's like, all right, all we want you to do is walk up there, stare at some stuff, and here's $250,000. Shit.
I'll do it.
It's like, so,
I need to sign up to be like a valet or something. Just stand around and do nothing and get paid. That sounds like a good gig.
That's something. And speaking of good gigs, this hot start with Kevin Owens coming in during that entrance, that is how you start a TLC match.
Yes, I very much liked the beginning of this match. Also, Jey Uso's going to help Roman Reigns. And he doesn't wait till the halfway point of the match, because they have to do moves before you can have the bad guy have his helper interfere.
He's got to come at the right time.
That's so stupid. I'm glad he just immediately came in. Because that actually makes sense. You can't get disqualified. You can do what you want. So just go ahead and go down there. Your guy's losing.
Well, and if this were a legitimate fight, it's not like your boys are just going to sit around the outside if they're going to play dirty. They're going to show up when they show up.
Although at the same time, we already had a TLC match with a bunch of interference, so it did make it a little more repetitive in this match, but I think it was done better in this match because they didn't wait till the match was halfway over.
Agreed. And one thing I will give, I kind of complained that they had in-ring title intros for AJ and Drew at the beginning, but I'm glad they didn't start hot because it made it better now.
Yeah.
And it made more sense to do it later in the show. So I understand why they did it, and it makes more sense why they did it. And then Roman Reigns takes the Triple H stairs bump.
Yep. Yeah, every match Roman Reigns is in, he does that. I noticed that in this match.
Yeah, you know what? That's why people were so bored of WrestleMania 32 with Roman Reigns and Triple H, because they both did it, and then there were no more stairs to boom.
Instead of Big Show and Eric Rowan having a stairs match, it should have been Roman Reigns and Triple H having a stairs match.
And it's just them running in and seeing who can take the bump better.
An Iron Man match where the only way to get a point is to throw your opponent into the steel steps.
It's like those the competitions, like the bodybuilding competitions Triple H had with Scott Steiner in 2003. It's like, oh, I can take this bump better than you can, Roman.
They both love that bump. Oh, God.
We can make this happen. 2021. It's still possible.
But yeah, this was a really good match. And again, there was the aforementioned spinebuster on a table that never happened in this match. He must have been watching a different match. But
yes, it was very clearly a spear on a steel chair.
Yes. How could I? It was a suplex on the steel steps. So, and I will say, some people have complained that it's weird that Drew McIntyre and Kevin Owens getting double, quadruple, whatever teamed, and they had no friends come out to help them. For Drew, I can kind of see that because him and Sheamus haven't they been kind of buddy-buddy? I don't watch the show. But for Kevin Owens, it makes sense because Kevin Owens backstabs people all the time. So it made sense for him to have no friends in this match, even though it's weird. It's weird having a babyface that doesn't have friends, but whatever.
Well, no baby faces have friends anymore. Only the heels are.
Can you imagine how miserable it must be to be a babyface in WWE?
I have no doubt about that. And then
you get beat up all the time, and you have no friends, and you rarely win.
Oh yeah, and don't have a hometown.
Yeah, do not have a hometown. You will
bad call.
Miss the show. Don't show up for work if you go to your hometown.
Yep, just be from parts unknown. You can't lose in parts unknown. Because you never go in there. So then they do the Pillmanizing of Jey Uso's foot, which he doesn't sell. Mm-hmm. And it once again reinforces another gimmick that has lost its luster in Pillmanizing anything.
Yep.
Because they've done that a jillion times this year. Remember how many times we saw that in Bayley and Sasha Banks?
Yep.
And they sold it none. So we could pretty much just leave that in the past because that means nothing. Then Reigns did probably the best looking drive-by he ever did because he had to
that
get
drive-by
higher.
That drive-by, I actually rewound that because that was so good.
Yeah.
People sleep on Roman Reigns' athletic ability. That dude can move.
Well, when he does it normally, it's not that impressive because he's not getting that high off the ground. But that one, he doubled his height on that.
Roman, every time you do this move, do it near the beginning of the match where you still have some gas in your tank, and just see how high you can get.
Yeah, that was wicked impressive. They both sell very well. Mm-hmm. One thing I wish they would stop doing, Kevin Dunn. I know that you've got big teeth, but can you please stop with the close-up shots of Roman Reigns' face just so you can look at his? Happened so many times this match. They do not do close-up shots of any other wrestler like that.
But that's because Roman Reigns is so hot, yo.
It's because Bucky Beaver likes seeing other people with teeth. That's what it is.
And speaking of Kevin Dunn, one glaring issue with this match, the crowd noise was cranked up all the way. As loud as they could possibly get it the entire match. This is a negative and a positive. You could not hear the announcers. Which is good because you couldn't hear the announcers. But it's also bad because you can't hear the announcers.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, not that I really wanted to hear any of Cole and Corey in this match at all, because I did not.
Yeah. But turn it down. Like, my God.
I realized with this, too, because as I was trying not to listen to Kevin Dunn's crap and seeing all of his teeth shots, one thing that I don't like about TLC matches, and Kevin Owens did this a couple times, but he's not the only one who's guilty of this. When someone grabs a leg while you're on the ladder and then you just walk back down the ladder.
Yeah, just kick them off.
Fight them. Yeah. Or have them be pulled off.
Yeah, just yank.
If you're trying to keep it. Like, the walk back down the ladder didn't make any sense. And Owens did it a couple times here, but it's not just him.
Yeah, everyone does.
You know, a lot of people do it. So I'm not even knocking Owens specifically for that. They do have. I am finding that I'm going to have to make a WWE pay-per-view bingo because there's certain things that they do on every single show that I'm now going to have to just check off, make sure it makes the list. The one they did this time was the announce table spot because an announce table spot on every pay-per-view they do.
Yep.
All the time.
Yep.
Then, of course, another one, the cliche of somebody saying, "Oh, what do I have to do?"
Yep.
And then they do a barricade spot, something that has been increasingly popular with WWE nowadays.
If you made a WWE drinking game for stuff like this, you would die.
I'd be pretty drunk.
If you did a drinking game where you just drank water, you would drown.
Yeah. This is and then another thing that took me out of the moment, that Roman Reigns did that Samoan drop on the outside onto the table, and that table was so clean cut. I was like, oh, come on. It was perfectly cut in half.
Yeah, not any crumble or anything like that. It just snapped like a piece of bread.
And yet somehow Roman Reigns at the end of this match still got Bob Hollied. And I don't know how. Do you know what I mean by Bob Hollied?
Not sure.
Where he got where it got cut across the back by a table or something, and had like a line of blood down his back.
Well, he did get a pop-up powerbomb through a table. Oh, I mean, he got a spine buster through a ladder, so that must have been it.
That's right. Oh, of course. So that probably must have been it. But I did see that he did get the Bob Holly cut. Not as bad as Bob Holly, but he did get the Bob Holly cut. And then I had a revelation. You would think that with an audience that has increasingly short attention spans, that instead of shortening your continuity, you would just shorten the length of the matches.
Oh, no.
Why does everything have to go half an hour?
Because, Sean, long match equals good match.
No, shut up, Meltzer. Shut up.
I didn't say anything about the Tokyo Dome, but long match equals good match.
But this just, my thing, and this is wrestling in general, everything goes for eternity. Again, this was another match. I thought it was by and large good. It just went forever. They kept it engaging, as a main event. It would have been great for a 25-minute match as a main event. But it wasn't even a main event.
Oh, God, don't remind me.
And it's the TLC, which is the pay-per-view that it's named after.
Why wasn't this the show closer? I get it, because in the next match they set a dude on fire and turned him into embers. But that's retarded. Why was that? I hate this company.
It makes no sense. It just further proving that it's all just gravy.
It's a clown show.
It's a clown show. Oh no, it's not a clown show yet. It's going to be a clown show in about 5 minutes here.
Oh, I don't even... Before we get into that travesty, let's see what Skyler thought about this match. All right. Roman Reigns versus Kevin Owens for the Universal Championship TLC. So, the best well-told story feud and a world title match is not going to main event TLC FU Vince 3. I very much agree with that. Although I don't know if I would say the best well-told story. All it is just Roman Reigns and Jey Uso beating up Kevin Owens over and over and over and over again from what I've seen. But whatever. Agree to disagree. It's nice to see champion versus champion as World Wrestling Entertainment's Universal Champion Roman Reigns and NWL's World Champion Kevin Owens go at it. # cheap plug.
You gotta stop. Go and like my show, ladies and gentlemen. I didn't think you'd put this many references in it.
I like their hot start selling how personal this feud is between the two family men. Does not take long for Jey Uso to get involved and for Kevin Owens to absolutely destroy him and his leg, apparently, until Jey Uso just hobbles back down to the ring. And he hobbles back down to the ring minus the hobbling. This match has a more violent feeling to it than Styles and McIntyre, which it should, given how this feud has grown so personal between Owens and Reigns. I am not sure how I feel about Jey Uso being as involved as he was in this match. I agree, there was way too much interference. I like him and his work recently, but I would also like to see Roman do his stuff on his own. But then it is heelish, so to have a help in the match like this, I understand. Owens' stunner looked better here because Roman sold it better than the other mooks on Team Raw sold them at Survivor Series. Mooks, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know if I agree with that. I just hate that he does the stunner. It doesn't help that it doesn't help that the stunner looks bad. I just hate that he does the stunner in general.
It looks bad because he's doing it in shorts.
Yes, and because his like the head positioning with his arms always looks weird. It's never on the shoulder, but whatever.
And he has no tan or muscle definition in his arms either. So. Yep.
At least he didn't jump high into the air with Matt Riddle jumping as high as he could and landing on his knees like the stunner Kevin Owens gave Matt Riddle at Survivor Series was the most cartoonish looking stunner I've ever seen.
Ridiculous.
I liked Michael Cole had more emotion in this match cheering for Kevin Owens to beat Roman, even if he did call a spinebuster through a table when Roman Reigns did a powerbomb on a ladder. I like how everyone noticed that and is making fun of Michael Cole for it. I just love that.
It's worth it.
I noticed a subtle reference to The Rock when Roman did a standing rock bottom to Owens through a table. After Roman put Owens through a table, that was a choke slam. That was not a rock bottom, that was a choke slam. After Roman put Owens through a couple more tables along ringside, Owens would not stay down, and Roman Reigns destroyed him for his defiance by spearing him through another table set up in the corner, and that obliterated the table. That was a pretty nasty looking spear. And I love the way Owens sold it by just sitting up dead.
Yeah, I loved that. That was awesome. That whole sequence was great. Was really good.
But Owens will not stop. He keeps on trucking. Roman Reigns did not hold back when he speared the barricade. I noticed that Roman Reigns was bleeding on his forearm and from cuts on his back, which really helped give the match some much-needed color. Owens gets a couple of shots to grab the title when Jey or Roman keeps stopping him. Finally, a dick punch by Roman Reigns ends it, and the Tribal Chief stays on top of the mountain. Great match overall, and it is a rare WWE match where both guys really get over, and the loser does not feel like a loser. I don't know if I agree with that because he keeps getting beat up by the same guys week after week, but whatever. Owens is believable as a main event level babyface, and Roman keeps his status as as head of the table. I would not mind if these guys kept feuding and keep going to the Rumble. Since Roman Reigns not only wins, does he not only keep the Universal title, but he also gets to either have sex. Okay, since he beat Kevin Owens for the title, he either gets to have sex with Owens' wife or mount her head on a pike.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that stipulation. That's right.
You know what? I like the why does this channel have better continuity than WWE?
Because we actually remember stuff from time to time.
Because none of us are 75.
Yeah, that's part of it. Not even collectively.
And you know what? If the show ended right here, I would give it like a modest 7 out of 10.
It would have. Honestly, I probably would have leaned toward a higher score myself.
But the show did not end here. The show ended with this: Randy Orton versus the Fiend Bray Wyatt in a Firefly Inferno match. First off, I have several problems with this. One, Randy Orton versus Bray Wyatt always sucks. It is always a disaster. No Mercy 2017. The Randy Orton versus Bray Wyatt match sucked. And back then, I was begging for him to just beat Randy Orton clean, because at that point, Bray Wyatt needed a clean main event win over a big name. What did they do? They had a boring match, and then Luke Harper interfered, allowing Bray Wyatt to get the dirty win. So there goes that, and the match was boring and it sucked. They had that god-awful WrestleMania match with the bug hologram thing in the ring. That sucked.
Don't forget the House of Horrors.
They had the House of Horrors at Payback, which was even worse than that. Do you remember that one SmackDown where Randy Orton tried to creep Bray Wyatt out, and he just had his Titantron with his face on it go upside down?
Yes.
I can do that on my editing software. I can pull up Wonder Sheriff Filmora right now and do the same exact thing. This is a multi-million-dollar company, thinking that that's cool and creepy. I hate the show.
Oh, trust me, they did a lot of that in this.
This was back in 2016 and 17, ladies and gentlemen. And now, not only are they having these two go at it again, they had the temerity to reference that god-awful feud.
The fact that
When they have continuity, they do it with stuff that sucks.
I love the fact that they brought all this back up, but it's like, this is not the stuff we want to reminisce about.
Do you know why they bothered to bring that back up?
Because they've been doing that with the Fiend from the start.
No. Do you know why they specifically brought that back up? Because they hate me.
I was gonna say, because they're trying to resell people on it.
Because they want to make me they want to make me embarrassed to be a wrestling fan, and it's working.
Well, here's the ridiculous part of it. This was their best match?
That is depressing.
Question mark?
That is depressing.
I think.
Another issue before the bell even sounded. No one knew what the rules of this thing were until like halfway through the match.
No, what was great is that, I don't even remember this guy's name, but in-ring announcer B, he's like, this is a match where they're like, all right, it's time. It's an Inferno match. All right, here's the rules, everybody. It's like the chippiness, and the announcer was like chipper happy to be there.
Yes.
And he's like,
he was like a kid on Christmas morning. Fire. He was like, someone's getting lit on fire, kids.
Yeah. And then
Jesus.
And then Randy Orton comes out in a tracksuit.
Get it? Because he doesn't want to get set on fire. Who wouldn't?
No, I'm sorry. It's a hoodie and Batista certified skinny jeans.
Oh my god.
Oh wait, it gets better. So then, I was running out of time, so I wanted to see how long these entrances were going to go. 8.5 minutes later.
Yep.
The match starts. I skipped all of it. I was like, I'm not going. 8 minutes of entrance, folks. That's 100 miles an hour or grandma on the freeway. There's no middle ground.
God.
That's all you get. It's
Can you feel my annoyance through Messenger right now?
Oh, well, it got worse because then Orton started doing shots and the Fiend started selling like an anime character.
Yes, he did.
First he starts laughing, then he gets in and he just sticks his tongue out, then he does his punch and he goes, oh, and then they like just...
You're not wrong.
And then they do this whole thing, and then it's just like, and then what is it with these two that they always have to go into finisher fests?
I don't know. What is it with these two and their complete lack of chemistry?
They legitimately, they're like, all right, 2 seconds in, RKO, no, Sister Abigail, no, RKO, no, Sister Abigail. All right, then we'll run around a little bit and do all that again.
Ladies and gentlemen, these two have nuclear apocalypse levels of bad chemistry. They cannot have a good match together. I love Bray Wyatt and I love Randy Orton. Together, it sucks. It's always garbage. And also, another thing that got on my nerves, this Inferno match started, and the only way to win is to set your opponent on fire. It took them 5 minutes to light the fire.
No. They didn't just take 5 minutes to light the fire. They had to wait for Bray Wyatt to mystically give them the cue so they could set everything on fire.
I hate this. It is so cheesy. It is... I hate this so much.
And then this is... JoshAgeddon is getting Cornette Russo levels of angry now.
This hokey D-list horror movie crap is the worst. This is WWE at its dirt worst. When they...
And then Bray Wyatt goes outside and pulls out Sister Abigail's chair for fun. Because that's always around. We've had that ringside every time that the Fiend has come out since he's debuted, right?
Sean, can I tell you something that might shock you? Can I tell you something that might shock you? You know what one of my least favorite gimmicks in WWE is right now?
Is it the Fiend?
The Fiend. They have ruined him. Do you remember how excited I was when they first introduced him at SummerSlam like a year ago?
Yeah, Goldberg has a fun way of killing his character, doesn't he?
The Seth Rollins Hell in a Cell match was the first step in the ruination. The Goldberg thing was when I was just done. And the feud with Braun Strowman was just... it was just like digging up the corpse of the grave, of the gimmick, and just burning it to its ashes. And this match where they actually burned him to ashes is just them pissing on the ashes.
And then the Thunderdome just did not set the tone for the severity of this match. And it didn't help that you had all these screens, and then it's like Samoa Joe sounded like he was like at the cemetery already.
But Sean, some of the screens were on fire. Which was also stupid.
This was just...
Oh, how are you going to win the match? You just throw the guy into a flaming screen?
But somehow they still ended up being their best match, somehow. And then the finish came out of nowhere.
Yep. Okay, let me get into this finish. So, whenever someone puts someone else in the mandible claw, they're pushing them. So why is The Fiend pushing Randy Orton, but Randy Orton is pushing him back into fire? He should have been pushing Randy Orton away from the... How is Randy Orton overpowering the supernatural monster fiend Bray Wyatt when he has his finishing move locked in? It makes no sense.
And then turns around... Oh, this is my favorite part. He said to... Oh, well, before we get to that, I'm sorry, I didn't get to the finish, because then they do this thing, which was so very obviously set up and pre-taped, where he sets the chair and he gets the gasoline and he does the pouring line, he gets Orton in it, he lights the match and drops it. There's a bunch of cheap cuts, and then Randy Orton gets out of the way, and the cut was not fast enough to how fast a fire would light.
Yep.
So, very clearly that was shot and retaken.
Yep.
So that was very clearly destroyed out of the moment. And then Bray, the dumbass, puts two fingers on, like, pushes the chair.
I noticed that. I was like, dude, you're going to lose.
Dude, if he had caught fire from two-fingering that chair, I would have busted out into so much laughter. It was like, if he lost on that technicality, and then they tried to just cover it and keep fighting, that would have been A grade.
And then he pulls out, like, a bunch of, like, random weapons, like a pickaxe. Ooh.
Just to make Orton have to just get coloring books for Christmas the rest of his life.
And he gets a whip, and then he sets the whip on fire. What happens when the whip completely catches on fire, you're still holding it, and your hand catches on fire, and you lose, you idiot? And then he gets a stick, sets it on fire, and the same thing almost happens. I hate this match.
Oh, wait. It gets better. Because then they do this thing, and finally the finish happens, and Bray Wyatt gets set on fire, and then he lays in the ring with a couple patches, and then the fire's out, and then he sells. So it took 10,000 chair shots and sledgehammer shots at WrestleMania to knock this guy down, and he still got up. But a few patches of fire that are put out on a flame retardant suit, and the Fiend is out.
No, it's even worse than that. He's running around while on fire. Randy Orton RKOs him once, and he's dead. So an RKO is more dangerous than fire.
Yeah, that's right. Because fire doesn't happen out of nowhere. RKOs happen out of nowhere. And then
Smokey the Bear should not be afraid of fire. He should be afraid of the RKO.
That's right.
God,
only you can prevent RKOs out of nowhere. And then Orton's like, all right, I think I'm just gonna kill him.
And also before another thing I loved about this, after he set Bray Wyatt on fire, there was no bell.
No, yeah. There was no finish to this. The match never ended. We're still in it.
So how do you have a no finish in an Inferno match where a dude actually gets set on fire?
Well, twice. Oh, and it gets better. It gets better. Because there's no bell. He sets him on fire. Orton decides, all right, I'm just going to kill him. And Bray's in the middle of the ring. Orton gets the gas can and takes the gas can and, like, sniffs the gas can and, like, pulls back. I'm like, you idiot. Put these things in there.
I love how the entire goal of the match was to set your opponent on fire. So he did that. and then he's going to do it again, and now the announcers are like, don't do it, Randy! It'll be an atrocity! Don't do it! And I'm like, where were you 30 seconds ago when he was on fire?
As if they weren't in the arena with him, like, just feet away.
God.
If somebody was actually going to set somebody else on fire, they'd all be stopping him. They wouldn't all be just be like, no, don't. There weren't even any referees in that building.
Also, remember when Jey Uso's foot got Pillmanized and you had like 30 people helping him out? Where were they when he literally set someone on fire? They just let the Fiend burn to death.
Yeah, it was just, and then I love everything about this was so cheesy. And then he sets the Fiend on fire. He gets completely set on fire, and then the pyrotechnics just go haywire, and he poses in front of the pyrotechnics, and that's how the show goes off the air.
No, before the show goes off, they pipe in a girl screaming, and then it goes off the air.
Oh, God.
God, this sucked.
It was bad. And I love when Orton's sniffing the gas like a total dumbass. Also, further enforces another point that we found out this year, is that pro wrestlers do not know how to use basic tools.
They don't.
Between the box cutter and Strowman and...
The tape and Sasha... The tape and Bailey.
The duct tape with the Hell in a Cell with Bailey and Sasha Banks. And now with Orton and the gas can, these people would not make good landscapers.
No, they would not.
There's a reason they chose pro wrestling instead.
They would die. They would injure themselves.
It's just funny. It just makes me laugh. But this match was just bad. I mean, it was everything that Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt's feud encapsulates.
And with all of this was the main event of TLC. Not a tables match, not a ladder match, not a chairs match, not a tables, ladders, and chairs match. A Firefly Inferno match. Other than a man getting set on fire, why was this the close of the show?
I don't know.
Why?
I don't know. It's so funny. It's just so funny.
This was our sign-off before Christmas. Setting a man on fire.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year! Hope you enjoy Christmas, kids. If you see a clown, burn him.
Jesus Christ. That's the moral of the story, folks. Burn clowns.
God. Okay.
Wow. Only WWE can you get these quality entertainment. This was bad.
With the right mindset, this was 10 stars.
High as hell on drugs, you would love this match.
High on drugs, you'd love everything. You would never want to see a wrestling match that didn't involve Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt if you were high.
Yes.
All right, so Skyler's notes. Skyler's notes. I have a feeling he's going to agree with us on this. How many times do we have to keep going down this rabbit hole? Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt have never have good matches, and they always end up becoming weird, gimmicky shit. 100% accurate.
Yeah, that pretty much nails it.
They did some fighting early on, which was fine, even though it did spam signature moves and finishers, which Sean did also mention. Then the Fiend lit the ringside on fire, and man, you would not be able to do that with a crowd, so I admit it was a cool visual. I disagree, I thought it looked stupid.
Stupid.
But it took me a second before I realized what this match was. It was a cinematic match that happened in the ring instead of away from one, and I immediately lost interest. That's when you lost interest?
Yeah.
Not when this was announced?
I never lost interest. I thought this was just so bad, it's bad.
Dude, the instant I heard Randy Orton versus Bray Wyatt, I immediately clocked out.
Yeah, I was like, oh no, this cannot end well.
I could tell because the announcers were calling it, but clearly was not live and they were not ringside. There were special effects used, like stuff with the lightning on the chair on fire, and it not having blood 1 second when Randy was sitting on it, having blood on it after Randy got off the chair. The Fiend laughed while looking at Randy Orton, but the camera was behind Bray's clearly not moving head, meaning that the laugh was fake and put in post-production. I didn't notice that. Good eye. They kept brawling in and around ringside and using different weapons and teasing lighting someone on fire. Then Randy Orton lit The Fiend on fire by putting his back into the flames, and The Fiend proceeded to stand there while on fire, then jumped into the ring to attack Randy Orton and ate an RKO and laid to rest face down in the ring. By the way, if you notice very closely in one shot, The Fiend still had fire on him, and then they turned to Randy Orton's shocked face, and when they came back, the fire was already out on The Fiend, which clearly would have still been there if it was a real fire. And then Randy Orton, like any other good criminal, after committing murder, proceeds to destroy the evidence and lights The Fiend's body on fire. F.U. Vince 4.
The more that I hear it, like even in description, the more I'm thinking this might be one of the greatest things WWE has ever come out with.
In a comedic way, yes.
It's so bad, it's good kind of way.
Jesus Christ.
I'm like starting to turn around on this thing.
Jesus Christ.
It's so bad.
Right.
Don't get me wrong, it's so astronomically bad. But just the absurdity of how bad it is makes this somewhat entertaining.
Ladies and gentlemen, this was the room of wrestling matches.
This is the match where wrestling matches go to be incinerated and then lay in the middle of the ring and then get incinerated again.
Okay, I have a question. On your channel, you did a review of the Silent Night, Bloody Night Christmas match with the barbed wire Christmas tree. What was funnier, that match or this match?
I would say that they're similar in how bad they were. I would say this match was probably better than Silent Night, Bloody Night. Because the ridiculous thing about the Silent Night, Bloody Night match from TNA in 2007 is like they have the barbed wire Christmas tree with a bunch of like sporting equipment underneath it that they start hitting each other with. But the most ridiculous part is after everyone's hit with tacks and glass and all this, James Mitchell comes to run interference and the referee goes to like take a distraction. Like they didn't all just hit each other with barbed wire and broken glass.
Didn't at one point someone grab the tree, pull it to one side of the ring, and swing it like a pendulum, and the dude had to grab it to pretend to get stuck with it?
Yeah, that was Dustin Rhodes. He tried. The poor guy. He looked so bad. Dustin was in such bad shape at that point.
For those of you that don't have a clue what we're talking about, TNA, a different wrestling company, had a match in 2007 where they had a barbed wire Christmas tree hanging from the ceiling. And it involved a guy named Relic, who's just killer spelled backwards, and Shark Boy.
Oh, and Shark Boy was nursing injury. He came out that ring with a neck brace and like so much tape, like around both legs, both arms. Even at his fin had a little patch on it. It's next level absurdity.
God.
Yeah. So just goes to show that you just cannot escape it.
Pro wrestling is dead, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Sean, what did you think of the show overall?
Well, from what I'm now starting to learn, might just be the masterpiece coup de grace of WWE's year. The rest of this match, the rest of this show, was actually all right. I hated the way that Drew and AJ, I just hated where they were and the circumstances around it. But all in all, there was nothing egregiously offensive, save for that last match.
Yeah.
So I gave this a 6.
6 out of 10?
I gave Survivor Series a 5.5 to a 6. I gave this a definitive 6. It could have been worse, but that last match really did bring a lot of the show down for me.
Me personally, I thought in a vacuum, in isolation, this was a good show if you take out the main event. But the fact, like, if the show stopped after the Universal title match, I would have given this like a modest 7 out of 10. But when you factor in all the atrocious booking, the death of multiple gimmicks on this show,
and a person.
Yes, and a person. And like when you think of how awful the presentation, the booking, and that main event was, I was going to give this show a 7 out of 10, but after that main event, I'm giving this show a 5 out of 10.
Yeah.
If you want to go back and watch the show, fine. Just turn it off after the Universal title match. Or get plastered and then watch the main event.
Or what you could do, folks, is you could watch it all a second time, like myself and Grammar Notes Sky are going to, and listen to our review on the Court Martial podcast next week. That's right, I'm going to watch all this again.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, go subscribe to the Court Martial podcast, where Sean and Skyler torture themselves for your entertainment, kind of like what we're doing today.
That's right, and so I'm going to get to see all of that cheesy goodness that involves Fire and Bray Wyatt once again. But look, folks, you can't make this stuff up. This was one of the most ridiculous things. I think, I miss us just reviewing the Big Four.
Yes.
That's my...
Can we go back to that, please? Because if we do more like this, I might actually hang myself.
Yeah, I'm going to start having to cut myself, and that's no good.
All right, so Skyler's closing thoughts. Damn it, Vince, I was about to give you praise for 2 great TLC matches, a couple of solid tags, and even if it was not for me, a decent women's title match. But you had to go Hollywood and cinematic for that last match, didn't you? Never book Randy Orton versus Bray Wyatt ever again. Thank you! Someone gets me!
Agreed.
F.U. Vince 5. And here I was about to award WWE a 6 out of 10 for the show. Instead, I must knock it down a full point to 5 out of 10, and I would have made it lower if it were not for the work done during those TLC matches. If you watch the show and only watch the first 5 matches, you come away with a good 2.5-hour wrestling show. At this point with WWE, you get what you get, and you take the bad with the good. Still, for what this is, TLC 2020 wraps up another year of WWE pay-per-views, and now we can prepare for the next WWE pay-per-view, the Royal Rumble, on January 31st, 2021. So until then, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to everyone from the Bay Area brawler, Skyler Greenberg. TLC score, 5 out of 10.
You know what I just had? You know what thought just came to my mind?
I'm scared.
We're going to get Edge come back, and then he's going to feud with Randy Orton again for 6 more matches.
Yep.
But we've already seen the greatest wrestling match ever of all time in perpetuity throughout the universe forever and ever and ever and ever.
They'll do even better. It's even better than the great. That'll be the tagline. Even better than the greatest match ever.
It's the twice in a lifetime ever greatest perpetual in perpetuity throughout the universe forever and ever and ever.
Okay, Sean, I don't think they deserve that level of insult, but I see what you mean.
It's
but
what they do.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in to our review of TLC 2020. I'm going to take some Tylenol and go to bed. Go listen to the Court Martial podcast. Thank you for joining us.
See you later. See you at the Rumble.
God, this show made me hate my life. Good night, everybody.